The Dopamine Brain by Dr. Anastasia Horonis is a refreshingly modern take on how dopamine shapes our lives, not just biologically, but psychologically, socially, and morally. Unlike books that dwell purely in the realm of hard neuroscience, this one acts as a bridge between research and lived experience, offering a roadmap for anyone who feels stuck in cycles of compulsive behavior, distracted by short-term pleasures, or misaligned with their deeper values. What sets Horonis apart is her grounding in clinical psychology and her compassionate, down-to-earth voice, which makes complex science feel personal and actionable. The book opens with a gentle but pointed reality check. We are not broken, weak-willed creatures, we are simply human animals navigating an overstimulated world with a dopamine system that evolved for scarcity and survival. Horonis explains that dopamine, far from being just a reward chemical, is about pursuit. It fuels anticipation, keeps us alert to possibilities, and nudges us toward action. But in today's world, where novelty and pleasure are constantly available at the tap of a screen, our dopamine systems are overused, misdirected, and eventually numbed. From the first chapters, it's clear that Horonis is not interested in sensationalism. She critiques the popular concept of a dopamine detox, calling it a shallow fix for a deep misalignment. Instead, she reframes the issue as one of purpose versus pleasure. Dopamine isn't bad, she insists. It's just that we've let it be hijacked by quick hits, social media likes, fast food, binge-watching, scrolling endlessly. These aren't inherently harmful, but when they dominate, we lose connection to longer-term satisfaction, the kind that comes from creative flow, authentic connection, and values-driven goals. The heart of the book lies in what Horonis calls dopamine-aware living. She encourages readers to take an inventory of what drives their behavior, not just what they do, but why they do it. Through compelling stories from her clinical practice, she shows how people fall into dopamine loops that feel good momentarily but leave them feeling depleted or hollow. A woman obsessed with fitness apps becomes disconnected from the joy of movement. A teenager gets lost in the algorithmic abyss of TikTok, feeling numb and anxious. A high-achieving professional realizes that the dopamine she gets from crushing it at work is keeping her from true rest and meaning. Rather than preach or prescribe, Horonis invites readers into a dialogue with themselves. One of the most powerful chapters is about self-compassion in the face of relapse. When we try to break out of dopamine habits, whether it's sugar, pornography, Instagram, or endless achievement, we often fail, not because we're flawed, but because our brains are wired to seek the familiar. She normalizes this cycle and teaches how to return to our values again and again, without shame. Another standout section covers attention as a dopamine practice. Horonis walks readers through how focus works, how multitasking wrecks our brain's reward system, and how reclaiming deep attention is both radical and healing. She explores the neuroscience of boredom, how letting ourselves be bored, rather than constantly seeking stimulation, resets the dopamine system. Her practical exercises aren't gimmicks, they are quietly revolutionary, doing nothing for 10 minutes, eating a meal in silence, scheduling joy without performance. Throughout the book, Horonis dismantles the binary thinking that dominates dopamine conversations. She's not advocating for a life of abstinence or monastic control. Instead, she invites a more nuanced relationship with pleasure. We can still enjoy cake, Instagram, or Netflix, but she asks us to examine how much of our lives are shaped by reactive chasing, versus intentional engagement. She encourages replacing automatic dopamine hits with deliberate, slower pleasures, like learning, movement, friendship, creativity. One of the book's most important ideas is that dopamine follows attention, and attention is a limited resource. She shows how we can begin to reclaim it, starting with the body. Simple practices like breathwork, walking without music, or looking at the sky become powerful because they reconnect us to the present moment and resensitize us to the subtle, non-hyped forms of pleasure that our over-dopamine brains have forgotten. In contrast to fear-based writing about tech and addiction, Horonis takes a pro-human stance. She doesn't vilify dopamine, or even the world we live in. She accepts that we are pleasure-seeking beings in a hyper-stimulating environment, but insists we still have agency. Her solution is not willpower, but awareness plus alignment, understanding how our brains work, and then choosing actions that reflect who we actually want to be. She also discusses values-based living as the antidote to dopamine dysregulation. When we know what matters to us, kindness, growth, family, creativity, we can begin to shape our behavior accordingly, not through force but through resonance. She shows that when our choices align with our values, dopamine becomes a supportive force, not a destructive one. It's not about saying no to pleasure, but about saying yes to purpose. What's most compelling is how Hronis integrates mental health insights with neuroscience. She draws on therapies like ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, CBT, and mindfulness-based interventions to show how we can gently retrain our reward systems. The emphasis is on progress, not perfection. Small shifts, getting up without checking your phone, choosing to create before consuming, become acts of personal revolution. Her tone is hopeful, but never naive. She acknowledges that change is hard, especially in an economy designed to monetize our attention. But she believes in the power of awareness, and she arms her readers with the knowledge to begin making those shifts. Her writing is calm, grounded, and reassuring, like a wise friend who also happens to understand your brain better than you do. Toward the end of the book, she asks readers to consider what kind of story they want to live, one of chasing quick rewards, or one of deeper meaning. It's not a moral judgment, but an invitation to slow down and notice. She reminds us that the most fulfilling dopamine is not from the peak but from the path, the process of becoming, not just arriving. In the final pages, Hronis leaves readers with a sense of possibility. She's not offering hacks or quick fixes, but a philosophy of engagement with the world that is kinder, more intentional, and ultimately more rewarding. The dopamine brain doesn't aim to scare you away from your habits, it wants to gently lead you back to yourself. And in doing so, it offers a vision of well-being that feels both grounded in science and profoundly human.